Hi, I am Brian Saltzman, and I will be telling you about the aircraft carrier. Before the aircraft carriers, there were battleships. They were the dominant force in the world's navies. They symbolized national power and influence. The bigger, the better, so to speak. Although the battleship was tough and formidable, naval strategists wanted to utilize scout planes for the battle fleet. In 1910, the U.S. Navy built its first flight deck on the back of a scout ship. The successful test made the Navy realize the potential for sea aviation. Unfortunately, this test didn't accelerate the Navy's plans for sea aviation. The British were the ones who kept experimenting with new ways to conduct aerial operations at sea. They built the HMS Argus. The whole deck was flat and it was nicknamed the all-weather carrier. It made float planes obsolete. They were the only planes operating at sea at the time. The Argus was a miracle. This also gave carriers their nickname, flat tops. After the success of the Argus, America's interest in aircraft carriers was renewed. The USS Langley was America's first aircraft carrier. This carrier helped develop the arrested gear which kept aircraft from plunging over the deck, and they also developed a signal operator to help guide the planes back onto the deck. A man named Joseph T. Reeves was instrumental in developing the forward barrier system. Instead of putting planes in the hangar, he moved them to the front of the ship, protecting them with a barrier. In doing that, he quadrupled the number of aircraft on the ship. Aircraft carriers were still viewed as just auxiliary scout vessels for the battle group, but an arms control agreement gave the aircraft carrier the chance to be further developed. Battleships' hulls were converted to aircraft carriers. This spawned the Lexington and Saratoga. The better engines and flight deck meant more operational aircraft. In January 1920, during a mock attack on Panama Canal, the Saratoga proved its long-range capability and carrier tactics. Admiral Reeves led a successful attack more than 200 miles out, proving carriers could operate as an independent force. He completely caught the defenders off guard. At Pearl Harbor, the Japanese launched over 200 planes that successfully sank or crippled over 8 battleships. It was the most devastating use of aircraft carriers in the war. After Pearl, the battleship was obsolete. The U.S. focused all efforts around their aircraft carriers. After Pearl Harbor, the U.S. knew it needed a quick strike back at Japan. The strike was known as the Doolittle Raid. The U.S. launched B-29 bombers off the deck of an aircraft carrier. The raid did little damage, but it did boost the American morale and shocked the Japanese Empire. After the Doolittle Raid, the Japanese knew they must destroy the American carriers. They accelerated their plans and attacked Coral Sea. This caused them to overextend their forces and create gaps in their supply lines. This is the Battle of Coral Sea. The Battle of Coral Sea was the first time the opposing ships never saw each other in battle. All damage was inflicted by carrier aircraft. The Americans sank 2 Japanese carriers, the Japanese sank the Lexington and damaged the Yorktown. Tactically, it was a draw. The U.S. lost more ships and the Japanese lost more airplanes and pilots. After the failed assault on Coral Sea, Admiral Yamamoto decided to stay aggressive and attack the islands of Midway. They planned to take out the American carriers there. Luckily for the U.S., they intercepted a transmission about the attack and planned to ambush the Japanese. The Japanese lost the element of surprise. Admiral Chester Nimitz was the one in charge of the U.S. Pacific Fleet. He was the one who sent the U.S. fleet to protect Midway with strong opposition in his own party. It was his actions without hesitation that helped the U.S. achieve victory at Midway. This is a picture of the admiral. With the U.S. battle group steaming towards Midway, the Japanese had no idea that they had walked into a trap. The Americans ambushed the Japanese, sinking 4 of their carriers, and the Japanese losing the best of their pilots. The Americans dealt a crippling blow to the Japanese Empire, which they had never recovered. Midway proved that the carrier was an independent offensive weapon. After Midway, the U.S. threw everything into making better aircraft carriers. The result was the Essex-class carrier. Better speed, hangar space, and runway room. The planes were also upgraded to fit more below decks. The U.S. had mastered building carriers in this era. No one but the Navy ruled the skies. After World War II, the carrier's next step in evolution came with the introduction of the jet fighter. The British developed steam catapults and another runway off the center of the carrier. They also added angled decks to help planes take off. Jets added significantly more striking power to the carrier. One of the most key components to an aircraft carrier today is the mirrored landing system. It was hard for jet pilots to see the LSO officer, signaling the adjustments on final approach. The device allows the pilot to optically align the plane with the flight deck. It has also been key in nighttime landings. The next carrier to roll off the line was the Forrestal, the first supercarrier to be made that could launch planes carrying nuclear weapons. It was designed for nuclear deterrence, with a large flight deck and the ability to carry a large number of planes and armaments made it a legitimate fighting force to be reckoned with. The next step in carrier evolution was nuclear propulsion. The nuclear reactor was ideal for the aircraft carrier. It could stay at sea longer and use up less fuel. The carrier could now travel anywhere in the world. The new carrier had 8 reactors and was longer than its replacement. The carrier was faster and had way better range. Aircraft carriers today are the most flexible ship in naval warfare today. They can strike anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. They have evolved over the years into an efficient and deadly weapon of war. The carrier will continue to evolve and lend support where it is needed. Thank you.